The, you'll see, healthcare's changed, so,
So let's call this workshop together here.
we have 5 minutes left, no?
Well, depends on what clock we
We
look
got
at.
5:59. 59.
The tape is
go for it.
running.
Set the clock back.
Let's since this is a public meeting and we are being recorded, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Mary Sylvester, I'm president of the Auburn Water District.
I'm Tish Crowley, I'm an Auburn Water District trustee.
I'm Ray Fortier, I'm a sewer district trustee.
Tanya Dunn, staff.
Casey Geiger, water trustee.
Mike Broadbent, assistant water and sewer superintendent.
Independent City Council Ward 3 and Mayor's Designate for the Water District.
Sid Hazelton, superintendent.
Charles, yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Well, you could say sewer district because I don't, that's not.
District.
Does everyone have in front of them the budget this is sewer, here's water, proposed with the draft November 6th. Now, what we've been working on here is, for this agenda, which you'll see before you, is that because we have two employers sitting at the table. We have the water district as one employer and the sewer district as another employer, and we share employees. So we need to come into agreement on the most important things that we can do tonight, I think, which is to work through the personnel costs, since the people are the heart of the business and getting things done, and we share them, and this is work we have to do together. So to begin, we want to pay attention to what are the components that we want to work on. One is the wages and salaries and the COLA, which has been tagged to the Social Security income increase each year, and the benefits costs. And Sid's done quite a lot of work on those two things. And maybe, Sid, it will help us begin to talk about your proposed cost of living increase.
Yep, so does everyone has again, to make sure everyone has the most current updated draft November 6th
Right.
on the front. Okay. Well, as Mary mentioned, we're here to look at shared items, and one of the shared items is the payroll. We've assumed if you look at page 1,
No, that's my fault.
Okay.
under page 1, under payroll,
One from there.
we're assuming,
Oh,
You need a sewer,
Yeah.
November 6th.
oh, need a sewer?
Okay, there you go.
You might as well toss that one so you don't get confused.
Well, I get confused easy.
So you're proposing 1.6%.
1.6% COLA. I know that, just going on past practices, we've always looked at the Social Security Index.
That's what they're talking 1.6.
Right. One of the earlier versions had a 1.8, but everything recently, I actually looked at it today to make sure that it was still the same.
That's the one.
And it is. It looks like a 1.6% COLA is what is recommended for the Social Security Index. So based upon, we haven't always followed that verbatim, but I put that in there as an assumption that we would follow that
So
1.6%.
before we go any further to see if we can just say, yes, we agree, I want to see if we do, yes.
Now, the state retirement, which has given me a raise in October, was 2%. And they're supposed to be using the same COLA that the federal government does. I can't figure it out.
Well, I've seen also for Social Security that is 1.6.
Yeah.
And we've been tagged to Social Security in the past. So one thing that would be simple is just to take the pulse here and say, we're not voting tonight, but are we in sufficient agreement on 1.6% COLA that we can say that's an area of general agreement?
Are we using that same study we used last year on
The steps,
step system? Are we
that's
using
in
that?
addition to that, yeah.
Okay,
but we'll get to that in a minute, but here, let's,
I'm not in agreement with that.
I'm not in agreement until we settle health insurance,
okay,
because I'm looking at
I'm not
total
say-
increases.
I'm not saying anything about all the other pieces
No,
of
no,
it, but
what I'm
does-
saying is I can't agree to any COLA
till we
until
get to
I
this.
know what our costs are going to be for all other
Okay,
benefits, including
They
health
can do
insurance.
that too, I
Because
just wanted to
I
get
have
a
a
reading.
proposal for
You wanna
increasing
take a look at
substantial.
the whole thing, that's fine. Is there anyone else who's sort of in a general agreement?
I'm not in agreement, I feel I've been against
Or
COLA,
not. Yes, I know you
but
are.
I do agree with increases for merit. So I wish that we could get away from this automatic increase at any time, we have step already, maybe there's a portion of step that you have to earn, I suppose, isn't it?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we increase that step, so that you increase that instead of 1%, you increase that to 1.5%, 2%, or 2.5%.
Okay,
But only if you had a review and you've earned it, as opposed to automatically 1.6 across the board for anybody. Right? On top of steps, on top of, all the other increases. It
Just to set the table again, if you remember last year when we went through this process, last year we updated we had a salary survey done by Don Tyler Associates, that was completed. There was a new schedule that he presented, we had several meetings, we adopted that schedule, and last year's budget included implementation of that pay plan. So that is the premise of this budget this year. It includes being on that new program. And this number includes the discretionary steps that will be implemented this year as part of that.
And I have no problem with that, but what I have a problem is doing both. You've got a step program that gives a person a chance to make more money, and they've been another year and they've done a good job, I like that. But when you add to that an automatic increase just because, it should be part of their performance.
And I think
And as you know, a lot of the people, as we implemented that pay plan, there's no one plan that's gonna fit everyone every time, and this was no exception. There are a lot of people in our organization that are not getting, either they're maxed out, topped out, or they were brought in at a level where the scale they need to catch up with the
Catch up to the
scale.
And
So-
that's called life.
Yeah.
I
Even
mean, that
still-
happens in private business all the
Yeah,
time when you
yeah.
hire somebody at a higher
Even-
level.
But yeah,
even today, Kate, Sid, we're still hiring above what our grade and step staff.
These are existing.
what we did was
Cause based on
as you know, the new schedule we're on simply took the old one, increased it by 6%, because on average, we were 6% below the standard.
Yeah, and so that's where, because we had some that were greater than
But-
that.
But a
we-
lot of the entry level was way below.
Right.
If you remember that step
Oh,
scale,
I
entry
remember
level was
this
way
one
below
very
industry
well, the
standard.
detail, right,
So to answer your question,
we raised
a
all
lot of
those,
people, we are not, it depends on the vacancy we have, experience, we might not start everyone off on the very first step of that.
I'm not
phase.
expecting that.
Okay.
Here's my question, so based on last year, when we stayed with the grades and steps and what I heard Andy say last year, now we are at the end of the year, so we can't do it again, it's a discussion of merit base over grades and steps, because we did not discuss grades and steps, you suggested them, Don studied them, and we updated them. So, when we did that, we had them out of line, and while some were more out of line, it was the majority voted a straight 6% increase, that was step one of it. Step two was to look at the individuals to see where they were, and
Yes.
the commitment was made that except for poor performance, everybody, when it was ended and we started our new year, that they would match the step and grade
Yes,
that
And we
they
did
were
that.
to be at. They
We
could
did
be
that.
above it, but they could, if they
they were
could
not
be
below.
above it because you had to buy them at a higher price.
People were adjusted to make sure they were,
But everybody who was successful performers, and you said we had 100% successful performers, met that step and grade that was in there. They could have exceeded it, but the minimum, the form
yep,
one.
everyone
Everybody
is, yes.
And I wanna make sure, that was one of my questions, why I wanted the step and grade information. I want that assurance and documentation that in fact, every employee who has had successful performance gets at least what the grade and step that they're at as compensation for
Yes.
salary.
We did that.
So maybe this is a clarification that will show what I don't understand, I'm sure it will, is in the way way that we implement the steps program that we have, does everyone get an increase every year because of the steps?
No,
No.
But many steps and grades do happen automatic. At the beginning, because where the change that I understood from the way you explained it last year, is you will see in that step and grades that there are places that they have to be in that for so many years.
Yeah.
So so the beginning, taking the beginning person,
Right.
to move from 1 to 2, step 1 to
Right.
2, unless they're a bad performer, it's an automatic.
Yes.
Not a exceptional, they just not a bad when they move forward.
They just
And
graduate.
several of them, then you get to a spot, as they described, and he would know the
Capped
exact,
out.
where for
3
this period of time you've hit it, because you don't have length of service.
Yeah.
And then you bump up. Then we have one category in that list, it's over on the far right hand side, that is a long time, and then you have one that you're maxed. Cause those end ones, sort of
So
like
the
once you get there.
people who are in this sort of plateaued status without a COLA get no increase whatsoever.
correct,
Right.
correct.
So one of the questions I have is how many people are in that category?
And
Not
why?
for an answer tonight,
And why?
and why, because
Maybe because we are paying them more than the step allows, because they're quote unquote being overpaid, and so they have to catch up.
There were there's some that are still slotted above the grade that they're in, right?
right, but we were asking about maximums.
So
if we have-
information needed.
Yep.
Before we go on, so that's what we're trying to do tonight, is if we have more questions before we have agreement, what other information do we need? We need the number of people,
And I think what it is to me is a philosophical thing.
yeah,
Do we
who are
want
capped.
performance graded, performance-based increases? Or do we want just blanket, everybody gets a raise no matter what?
I think we want some of both. On salary.
But
You said
again,
one
the thing is-
Salary.
Some
I think we want some of both.
Yes,
I
And
don't know, I mean.
It's different for every
the
pay grade.
performances.
do we
Well,
want
I mean,
automatic
The average
raises?
employee,
Because what happens when we start
What would
getting
be
to
the average?
inflationary times and the COLA's 5, 6,
I mean,
7%?
30,000.
We gotta do something. We can't do what the
It's all over the place based upon what you do.
trustees
What's that?
have done in the past. They've gotten to, you know, that
I'd have to
scale
show
where
you.
we're
I'd have to show-
halfway
There's
in.
like a dozen
Everybody-
different pay scales.
I've seen the time when we were one up from the bottom, and there's
I think
only
that's
one
right.
way to get there.
That's
but
what
we
the salary
spent the money
study
last
there.
year to put the scale in.
No, I understand
Oh.
that.
So my question is, he raised this last year, and I know I support it. We cannot, very likely out here, the majority will say we cannot address that question of performance-based raises, merit-based versus some automatic.
COLA.
No, automatic, not necessarily COLA. And so I would ask, because I think it's probably Andy and I alone, ask that there be a documented commitment at some point between now and December 31st, that work will be done in the first half of 2020, that we will look at, study whether we need a performance-based compensation enhancement, or a step in grade, or a combination of both.
See, one of the things that bothers me is that lots of times COLAs are just, we don't have to worry about checking the market out to see what our competition's doing in other places. We don't have to do salary studies. As long as we have a built-in increase, we're golden. Well, no, that's
No,
not
it
the
don't
case.
work that way.
You gotta every year look at what's going on. We wanna pay our people what they're worth and pay them better than anybody else, but not the ones who are not worth being paid anything else. And make sure, but that's the finger you have on the pulse all the time. An automatic COLA is just an easy way to satisfy everybody. They feel comfortable because they're getting this 1.6. I'd rather have a 2% increase myself for doing a good job than a 1.6 for doing nothing different. So I would shoot, if I knew there was a 2% there, I'd be doing a good job and my performance appraisal.
But you can get 1.6 and get a step increase.
But that's still only satisfactory performance, that's not exceptional performance. He's talking about an exceptional
Well, I
performance.
think that, yeah, I mean, people have a lot
Because
of
he said
incentives.
we have exceptional employees, so
Yeah.
I agree with your statement, and the only reason I wasn't as upset last year of us only doing is because Sid has reported that, quite honestly, we're very lucky. All of our employees, he said, were exceptional, and all.
Because good employees save you money.
Yep, I agree with you.
Employees that aren't good, they don't save you money. They
They
just-
cost you.
So the best way to do that is to make sure you have some sort of an incentive for people to want to be the best they can be. And the only best way to do that is some sort of performance pay plan.
But I don't think we can do that between now and December. We could budget for a different plan, but there's
your
managing
observation.
expectations.
Are your salary increases based upon the step program that we had last year?
They're based upon we follow the adopted
Okay.
pay schedule that we.
There's
that we
no
had.
COLA included.
Not automatically, it's decided every year.
Okay.
Last year it was, what, a
Greetings,
2 point.
welcome.
Good evening.
Hello, step right up. There are whoopie pies and, November 6th copies.
We're
There's a pumpkin pie.
in the discussion about compensation, we're understanding the question about a COLA, which if it's linked to social security would be 1.6%. And in fact, do we want to do a COLA? And it's led to identifying, at least knowing a question before it could be decided, is how many people are capped in their step, because anyone who's not capped in their step is gonna get compensation increase anyway.
Can we take an informal vote as to who's in favor of the COLA or not?
She was doing that, and she just.
Well,
got
so
that
let's
right
just
there.
do a little, I like the idea of an occasional straw ballot here, knowing that we don't have the full board of either board here, but for sewer, for water district, we have 4 trustees here. And for sewer, we have 4 trustees here, because Andy's on both.
Yeah, I can,
And I would only ask when we make the documentation this, because you said something at the beginning that I disagree with.
Yeah.
We don't share employees. We have 2 employees, the superintendent, assistant superintendent. I believe Sid's mentioned 1 or 2 others, so I'm guessing it might be Tanya. But we only have 2 to 4. Our other employees are not
I
shared, so
said a couple
when
that
we,
we should, yeah.
but that was how the premise are. So what we do tonight does not necessarily have to be this matching. So when we take the straw polls, to
Just
keep
trying
track
to
of
get a
each other.
pulse, yeah, we'll find, so for water district trustees, how many people would like to do a COLA?
Oh, boy.
And for sewer district trustees, how many would like to do a COLA? Well, we don't have a strong push here for doing a COLA, I can see that. So that brings back into question then for before we decide about a COLA, is how many people are capped in step, so that we can identify how many people would not get any raise if there is no COLA.
Is there anyone who doesn't get a raise?
Yes.
And for
What?
me,
I don't have it here in front of me, but I'd say there's probably 10 or so.
And what, the reason they didn't get a raise?
Because they're either waiting for the scale to catch up with them, or they're at the end of the
Okay.
pay scale.
Where they are.
so they're already overpaid
Yeah.
theoretically.
Well,
for the
no,
position.
they're not overpaid. Well,
for the scale,
yes,
the
the scale.
That's all he's talking
Those that are maxed out are.
Yeah, so I mean,
as far as
if you have a
they
pay
don't-
scale, they're overpaid.
So
for that
basically,
scale.
all the normal employees are going to get a performance increase in pay.
Step increase, correct.
Step
Step
Due to the step process, which
And if
is,
we, and I'm not saying we do away with the additional, I'm not in favor, I'm in favor of adding to that step for performance. I have no problem with like a 1 or 2% increase for an employee that deserves it, that's done a great job, and let's do it to them, but I just feel better
One
knowing that
problem-
somebody
one-
has said, yeah, you're doing a good job, here you go.
The
I will
older,
say
the older
implementing that-
employees.
Implementing that can be a challenge because
Catch it.
people,
Breaks your scale,
You-
it breaks your scale system.
you
like
know,
him,
you've
you don't
got,
like
well, again, the
and
question
you've
is,
got
do we
people
agree
that
with
work
scales?
together,
Yeah.
and as much as you like to reward those who are doing exceptional, believe me, it causes problems. I think you can appreciate that.
I've been
I
there.
think that's the
I was a
difference
supervisor
between
for a good part of my
Public
career.
practice and private industry, because
Well, yeah,
private
because once
industry,
again, you have a small
rewards the
workforce,
success.
they all know each
We're
other,
stuck.
it's not like we're a number in a large corporation.
yeah,
We're closing.
Then you break the whole scale system. If you start,
Well,
Right.
what's the difference between
but
a
that's the basic
1.6%?
question that was back. Do
A
we
one- a one-
want
If we
a,
do a 1.6 COLA, that inflates the entire scale.
So if you're doing a 1.6% performance appraisal, what's the difference between a
Because
performance
at least
based-
everyone's on the same platform at that time, as you're
everybody has the
giving
potential
steps.
platform.
the other thing is, he's talking about more money for performance. The reason I can't do anything now is because I have a substantial recommendation for balancing out the health insurance, and for some people, it's a huge number. So I wanna take the little COLA budget that he has and add it in so that we have this pool of money that we can become more equitable, so that we don't treat 5 people exceptional and all the 12 others differently.
Well, what I've got now, so we can keep our conversation going, is at this point, there's a low interest in both boards
For 100% COLA, well,
for
Again,
COLA.
let me throw this out there, what if we did a 1% COLA, but then we threw a 1% performance, so you did both?
But wait a minute, we've got this step thing, once again, we spent money to get this program. Each year, these increases are automatically based upon, that schedule that was developed last year.
But we never had the discussion, which is the point keeps coming back. We never had the discussion last year when we spent the money, bought the plan, and agreed to follow it, that was the way we wanted to pay. We did not have the
My
pay for
assumption was
performance
that's why we
versus
did the
grade.
plan, and that's why.
No, we did not discuss that question. Sid felt very strongly, and he had a history with it, and he wanted it updated, and it was, I think, very valuable.
But his
We have not
increase,
had that
his pay
philosophical
schedule
discussion.
this year is based upon.
I know
the
that.
program.
But there
And
was,
it should be.
there was a
He's
vote to
doing it
adopt,
right.
there
He's
was a
doing it
vote
right.
to adopt that schedule.
Yeah,
I'm not
we did.
disputing
Yeah,
that.
that's
but
what, that's
No
why.
one's hearing, and I'll stop saying, because I've now said it 4 times. We have not had the discussion, in the philosophical discussion and agreement, to use a grade and step system versus a merit or performance-based system. We have not had that discussion.
Can someone clarify this? I thought we had adopted that last year.
Not
We
as
did.
not as that specific, we adopted the plan, but what was the
But we
philosophy
didn't,
behind it?
right, we did not agree. We adopted the plan because it was presented and it's what was always done. We did not have any discussion, is this how we would want to pay our employees? Is this the methodology we want to do? That's what we didn't have
So-
last year, and I don't believe we have sufficient time between now and our
No,
budget
we
to do
don't.
it again.
But I did hear, and so let me ask, just to kind of keep us moving here, because we do have a budget. And yet, while the clock is ticking on the service of Andy, who did not run for reelection and therefore cannot be the mayoral appointment.
Yes, he can. Does not require to be a counselor.
Well, he's maybe not going to
Yeah,
be the
that's right.
mayoral appointment. And your term comes to an
In
end.
March 1st.
And so we've got, 2 people here who may not be with us too much longer, and we have to have a budget December 30th.
Well,
Do we have enough agreement that we're going to do something to have a budget by the end of the year that recognizes the need for a proper compensation without solving all these questions, with the idea that we will study some of these other options in 2020? Is there,
Yeah, I mean, I would be in
Agreement.
favor of that.
Good.
But the idea is that would, I hate calling it a COLA, I just think that.
And then what I heard you say was different than a COLA. What I heard is, was there agreement to have some funding available to recognize our employees' performances, whether it's in the form of a COLA or something, but to budget a lot of money. So
Well,
he
we
may
have
be
to
the
have-
1.6 plus something. You may put the 1.6, because Sid's number is, to me, where we need to be looking at. So he put in the 1.6, to me, that's the start of that pool of money.
but I think we should acknowledge, I mean, if we're gonna adopt a budget with pay increases, when would they become effective? In January, right?
January,
I
right?
thought there was their employees' anniversary day.
The COLA
That's
becomes
on the
effective January 1st. The steps are due upon their anniversary of hire, so those are implemented throughout the year.
So, only comment I wanna make is that with not getting into the idea of abandoning a step process at the moment.
No.
If we have one, the biggest problem we bumped into last time is that it had gotten so out of date that it cost us a fair amount of money to invest to catch up. And that the study documented that many of our positions had fallen far below the marketplace. And one way to keep that from happening is a steady program of cost of living increases that raises up the steps. Because every year it's a small incremental step that keeps it from getting so far out of date that you can't catch it up again without a big chunk of change coming into it. Now that doesn't address the do we want to have a step process, but I would say, having been part of the board last year, it's quite a surprise to me to think that we're now saying we paid all the money to do the study and we invested in the income needed to raise everybody's salaries, and then we're just gonna not use it anymore. I mean, maybe there's another philosophy point of view that we need to pursue, but it's a little bit surprising to me to think that we would have done all that work and invested in updating it, and now we're just gonna not use it.
I didn't hear not use it, cause
Okay.
it still stays in place.
Okay.
It still stays in place. It
Okay.
just says, it doesn't get a January, at this moment,
Right.
it does not get a January first bump. And I would have to say, and we don't have to get into it, cause to me, this is this part too, that a cost of living does not ensure or assist that. In fact, it's contrary. The biggest factor for the step and grade, that's most important, is market driven. So if you don't do what Andy suggested, which is every year to look at the market, and when Sid tells us, and I support his position, that we need to hire people higher than what their number of years of service or their skills, because the market is demanding it. That to me tells me that in a year's time, our thing is off. And you can't say, well, we invested the money and now we don't have to look at it.
No.
That's how we got in trouble,
Right.
because all we did was.
But what we implemented at least was a step in the right direction. That
Oh,
brought
I
us,
think-
that
right.
brought us up to the industry
Right.
peers.
And I wanna stay there.
Have you
See,
had
I wanna
any
stay there.
issues
Yeah.
You gotta be
hiring
like you said,
anybody?
studies
because
up, you have to look at each
Yeah.
position,
Okay.
and if you're overpaying the
The
steps.
program
you're
apparently,
losing.
I just asked Sid, has he had any problems this year in hiring people, because once again, we couldn't offer compensate, a salary that was competitive with other people in the business.
He said
no.
he's hired more outside above that.
Yeah.
So that's not this. Sid has said, and I support what he did. I think he's doing the right job when he has had to hire somebody that was by qualifications and experience would be, say, a grade 10, step 3. And he can't buy one for that. So he offers a grade 10, step 6.
So he's
Which
telling me
means the guys,
he's
he
telling me
said
this
that,
year he
he's
hasn't
done
done,
that.
yeah, he's done in the past, but not
Did
this
you do it
year.
this year?
The 2 or 3 people we hired this year were not brought in at the first step, because we hired some
That's
very
not the question.
qualified people.
Right, but they wouldn't be brought in at the first step.
They might be if they, depending on who,
No, they can't. If they have qualifications that you're looking for, they're not the beginner. Because that's what step 1 is a person who may have the
chances are they're
training.
not, it is available to me, but chances are they're not gonna come
Right.
at the very, very
Right.
first step.
And
It's-
shouldn't.
it's
And shouldn't.
not good.
Because you're hiring a caliber of employees that are exceptional. I mean, again, for the few employees here, we get that message. We have exceptional employees. So you cannot hire them at step 1. But if you look at the person and they're a grade 10 and their caliber of skills and experience would put them at step 6, you hire them at step 6. I think that's the right thing to do.
That's looking
But
at the
that
market.
then holds them if they're
We
only at
also-
3 for 3 years.
We also weigh it against our existing employees. We do not bring people in off the street that are over people who have been here for a period of time.
Yeah, you
I
have
mean,
to-
we're sensitive to that, of course. We have to.
But that also tells us, though, if you can't hire somebody, then we ought to be compensating our regular employees who've been here a long time, who have the same skill sets, the same experience, and have been our good employee for a number of
Well, that's
years.
what the whole thing, study was for.
Right.
If that's already out of date, because things have changed that much in a year,
No, it's not.
I give up, there's nothing we can do but make phone calls, you have to spend a lot of time, have an HR person
I think,
calling around and finding out.
I think probably 2 years from now, we'll be back to do another, salary study.
And
It
should-
should be done every 3 to 4
I
years.
think we know is going on. I mean, I bumped into it today, just, I mean, the labor issues in our state are becoming increasingly acute for skilled
Yeah.
technical workforce. And, hiring is hard and retention is hard. I mean,
That's true everywhere.
it's true everywhere, and it has gotten to be very critical, especially in skilled technical workforce. And if you're having luck hiring, the good news for us is to not have the same recruitment and retention problems, and that's a good thing. I mean, because if you can't hire or retain, because they can always go find better work elsewhere, then we'd be constantly churning and not having any experience base to build up.
And that's why I've recommended adopting the COLA. I mean, it keeps us up with the industry.
So I just want to park that into the conversation. What I'm gathering tonight is that we're not going to solve this tonight, but we have it as a question. We don't have an enormous groundswell of interest at the moment in doing a COLA. We have a definite interest in saying in 2020 we would spend some real effort looking at additional models. It sounds like a piece of data we need is how many people would not get a raise then, and we don't know that.
You need that specific number now. It's built into this number because I mean it's in my
We
work.
know that.
They
It's
want to
about
know the
10.
number of people,
About 10 people out of 30.
Yeah.
about a third of the workforce.
Well, we get, no, 10 out of 10, please, I'd like us to talk about ours.
Yeah.
So we have 17 employees, so
Okay.
if all 10 of those people are ours, we've got more than 50% of our employees.
So
Okay.
this is,
I'd have to go back and look.
so this is some research for the next time, and that's by district.
Do you want to get in the weeds that hard on this
Yes,
one?
if you want,
I don't.
well, again, then we can stay at, what's the
Well,
process?
I think if somebody has a desire to understand this number, then we owe it to a trustee to provide that
We
number.
can do all that for the next 3 years, Mary. We'll never get anything done.
Well, then,
Tonight, we have to look at the budget and look part of it.
Well,
can we
hold
start
on.
with
And we
payroll?
have to have some concept of, are we gonna do a COLA? I like a COLA in there. Are we gonna do the step stuff? Are we gonna blow up the whole system and study it to death? After we study filtration, we can maybe move into that sometime the end of next year.
Okay,
okay, so we have the
Let's-
numbers,
park that
1 to
right
4,
now, and let's talk about healthcare. Because when you have a budget that in fact has health insurance going down, this is a good thing. Now, it turns out Sid wanted to use his whiteboard.
Do you need that? I can take a picture of that if
Why
you want
don't you
it.
take a picture of it? I
Alright.
particularly want to
Yeah.
write that down.
Yeah, I'll take a photo for you.
Thank you. And then we'll wash it off.
Sorry, Charlie, I slipped on your foot.
I only use the bottoms.
Good thing.
I gotta write that one down.
All right.
I've got it too, sir.
Hold on, Mary, that won't.
Oh, you've
Yeah,
got,
you need the magic.
you need the real wash down here.
Mary, can you click the bottom light button,
I
please?
sure can. Thank you. Screen is now ready.
First one I'm using the laptop.
Your cursor on you.
Okay. I'm going to pass. I should have done this before. Sorry. I'm gonna pass this around. Those numbers are a little hard to see, but I do have them on a sheet I'll give you as well.
Thank you.
If you want to follow along in your sheet or on the. You got one here? Maybe.
I'm gonna sit back here so I can see.
Am might have to sit close so you can see.
Well, that's true.
Let's see.
No.
Like you have one? No?
I might upstairs.
I'll give you guys. Alright, what I've got here is a overall view of health insurance. Done quite a bit of research on this. And what I've got here, I've got 13 different health insurance programs. I'm not going to go through each one, it'll make you fall asleep. But what I've got up at the top, line number 1, is our existing health insurance. As you know, we're insured through the Cross Agency. We have the Anthem Gold Blue Choice PPO 2000. There's a $2,000 individual deduction, $4,000 family. You can see the out-of-pocket max is $4,500 individual, $9,000 family. And I've got these different designations. E, that's a single employee. ES, that's employee and spouse. EC, that's employee and child. And F is a family plan. So currently, that is what we have right now today. That's the program. And the total cost of the plan per month is $36,863.90. That's what it costs, both districts combined. Okay, that's what the plan costs. If we keep that existing plan moving forward for next year, with the same everything, they're offering it. However, under 2020. The out-of-pocket max is going up from $4,500 to $5,500, and the family is going up from $9,000 to $11,000. There's going to be a 10.5% premium increase over the existing plan if we keep that same plan. You can see the total cost of that would be almost $41,000. One thing that they did for us, and one thing that was not available until this year, was a balanced or a level funded insurance plan. This number, under number 2, the 10.5 increase, that number is based upon us being in a pool of with other types of small businesses, and so we're lumped into that rate increase. What they did, a balance funded program, they took us out of that pool and they looked at our individual insurance usages. They actually took every employee, looked at how much they spent on insurance, what their prescriptions were, and after looking at that, they were able to come back. Our insurance history has been very good in comparison to our peers. With this balance funded program, they were able to reduce our premium from $36,863 down to $35,377. That's a 4.2% decrease in the premium over what we're paying right now. The major difference in this one is that the out-of-pocket max does go up from $4,500 to $5,000. The family goes from $9,000 to $10,000.
The out-of-pocket, we reimburse them from with our HRA.
That is correct.
So it's not a difference in the employee at all.
No, it's not. We fund the HRA to cover all deductibles and co-insurances. Now this increase in out-of-pocket max does, in theory, increase our risk. Like if everyone somehow went out and maxed out their insurance, their individual and family limit, that would increase our risk. However, we've got several years of history of funding the HRA, and
only using 37% of it.
we're funding 7% of it. We've never even used that. We've never even come close to that. But we've put in a 37% HRA utilization just to give us a cushion. If you look at our insurance sheet, you'll see the calculation there. 100% utilization of the HRA. I forget the number. Is it like
577.
Yeah, it's over $500,000. You know, that's not realistic. If you go back the last 5 years of HRA usage, we've never even been close to $50,000. So I think we have a good history, good track record
Mhm.
of HRA utilization. So this one is highlighted because that is our recommendation for moving forward with the insurance package, and that number is reflected in the budget sheet under insurance and all the calculations that are for it.
That works for me.
Now,
So all of those others down there, I knew you had wanted to reach out to the Maine Municipal. I assume
Yes.
all those MMEH with the big municipal.
yes. Now and all the, I'm not gonna go through every one
No,
of
no,
these.
no, no,
because-
but I
Yes.
wanted to make sure your request was met, because we are staying with Ross.
Yes. So these are other cross ones that were at least given to us.
Yeah.
They have a higher deductible. One is a Harvard plan, which we're not realistically going to go for. Community health options, no. These ones 7 through 13 are the Maine Municipal Employee Health Trust programs that we used to be with. I don't have their deductibles and family limits because their plans are not built out yet. This is really, really hot off the press. I do not have
Look
those.
at how high they are.
But you can see that the total cost is significantly more than what we're paying here. You know, 32.6% higher, 24% higher, 21, 29. There is one, the PPO 2500 is a 3.3% reduction over what we're paying now. So this one will actually, you know, even better than that, and this one has a higher deductible. So, you know, this, to me, this is a, I almost hit the ceiling when they told me that, you know, this was available and that was what our insurance was going to be.
That's
So
nice. Always like to see a decrease.
I was very,
It's a
very happy
really
with that.
welcome.
And one thing about this, I said, you know, this sounds too good to be true. What's the downside? You know, what is there? There really is not one. We would be, if we come in with our actual claims under that number, they give us half the savings back in the following year.
And if we come in over their estimated,
If we do not pay. However,
it will
we could
affect
be
next year's rate.
we might be, yes, we could be reevaluated next year.
Right.
And if the number goes up, we can always go back into a
Something
different
else.
insurance.
Just in mind, next year, if there's a 5% increase, well, that's coming off a 4% decrease, so
Right.
that's a 2-year average to look for.
So, I mean, this to me was
Yeah,
a true no-brainer, as they say.
it's the same plan pretty much, right? Nothing changes.
It is the same plan. We still
Nothing
have
changed.
automatic benefits, feed of benefit claims through help me out.
Dynamic.
Through Dynamics. It is a different financial platform, so people do need to be re-put into it, but that's just an administrative thing. There are some very subtle differences in the plan, but not enough to really make a difference. So
Well, for a 15-point spread, there'd have to be a lot of difference.
right, and there really is. Actually, the co-pays go down, some of the prescriptions go down.
So for me, it's that word balance, so I just wanna be clear, cause I heard good news too. So, they've estimated an amount, is if we are I would assume substantially under in our claims experience, then they forecast, we split any savings 50-50, so we can get a rebate.
Yep.
If our experience is higher, and I'm gonna use the word significantly, then nothing, we don't pay in, but next year it is likely to affect the amount, and therefore they go back in this list to say, is this still best? Right.
We get
Which is no different-
reevaluated.
Which is no different than whether we're, even if we're good,
Yeah, no matter what.
even,
this
no matter
whole
what we
insurance
do,
is
we
like.
gotta get reevaluated, so,
Right.
which is what happens to all of them.
And like I said, this is the first year that they've offered this. Harvard offered it last year. So this is the first time Anthem's had this program. So we were very, very fortunate that this was the first year they did it. It's really going to benefit us.
It
So,
works it.
because I'm in favor of an occasional straw poll to see here, do we, and with the, you know, to build some building blocks into what do we already agree in the budget, can we agree that this would be, that we would support Sid's recommendation to go with this insurer?
And I can go with that insurer, it'll be how we pay for it, that's a
I
separate.
understand you've got other things
Absolutely.
you wanna talk about
Yeah,
related to
absolutely.
health insurance, Okay, can I turn this back on?
Yes, one thing I'd like to say as well, because this is a new program for them as well, they do want us to, it would be fairly important to get some consensus on this because they really would like to have us start to sign up if we wanna do this by late November.
I would be in favor of putting that question of all the health plans we've looked at. I would move in November that we select a single offering this year, you know, that's changed for me, to that one plan. And I would be willing to not only make the motion, hopefully get support, and vote on that in we have to do them separate, and we have to do them separately. But I absolutely could make that decision so you could begin the process of registering people.
So what we have is 4 trustees, I mean, Andy counts twice.
Yes.
We have 4 from each district, so if all water district trustees who would support agreeing with this so we can make that commitment as a straw poll.
With the formal vote at November
With
20th.
formal vote on November 12th. We have 4, so those are 4 yes votes probably on November 20th. How about sewer districts?
Yeah.
We have 4 trustees there, so I think Sid, you've got the affirmation you need to move ahead with this, and I wanna thank you for your perseverance in finding it, and what good news for us all when we first were thinking 10 or more % increase in that category.
And I would encourage us, and I'm happy to draft for you to edit and you to fix, that the actual motion be in our agenda packet, so those who are not here, it will all be clear exactly what we just agreed to.
I would love it, and we will have the tape video so we can review that if we need to, but it's, you know, let me just put a time frame in this. For water district trustees, at least, and you and Sewer may feel the same, if we could be possibly ready to vote on a budget on November 20th, or very close, I would be, it's a goal for me rather than waiting to December, because we're going to lose Andy.
All depends on when the inauguration is.
Right.
And the mayor's talking about later in the month for
Oh,
the inauguration, so I
Right.
might be
Well,
here
as
to
a
vote.
courtesy, you ought to talk to all the people who were elected yesterday.
Now, I think he's probably in the process of doing that, but it could be up to
Anyway.
45 days after the election.
I just think it's hard for a new person coming in to have,
Well, sorry.
so
Well,
if we can be done November 20th, wouldn't that be nice? Are we all set with this?
Do you want, now that I got it up, do you wanna go to equipment?
Yes.
I wanna just come back, I think we're not quite finished with personnel things.
Right, I was gonna say, don't we do, is that all we're gonna talk about tonight for health insurance?
No. You have something, I wanna finish personnel conversations, could we turn this off for now? Because it's a huge part of our budget, right, personnel, and it should be. People do this work, and it's a very large percentage of what we do, so I'm gonna write on the board again, so where we are with wages and salary is maybe COLA, maybe not. A study to convert to look at how we would do performance in 2020. And that's a question, but thinking that we would wanna do that, and then how would we provide some kind of automatic raises for people who won't get one through steps.
Sid, in your opinion, the wages that you have there is reflecting increases for the good employees. You're satisfied with those increases?
I'm strongly endorsing the budget you have in front of you. I think the 1.6% COLA increase keeps us up with the Joneses. It keeps us up with what the world is doing. There's a 1.6% increase that a lot of people are expecting.
Are we going back to discussing whether to do a
No.
COLA or not?
He asked a question and I wanna do a review of this before we get to yours.
And the number that I have in there includes discretionary steps for employees who are due them.
Discretionary steps for employees who are due them.
Yes.
Not for everybody.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
And what is a
And
discretionary?
the
Discretionary is
for
those
some
that
of
are,
them
that are due for,
are October.
due for merit increases.
Okay.
So discretionary step,
That's not automatic, so that's on
No.
top of
So
everything.
that's on the step and grades thing, if they were at a step 3,
If they have a successful performance evaluation,
Performance
Yeah.
based.
performance based, and if the scale indicates they're due a step, then
they
they
get the
will get
full
a
step.
step,
They get the full
2%
step,
step.
right, but they get the full step.
Mhm.
That's
so that's already in there, so
Yep.
some merit is already built in.
And I will say, if there is no COLA, we do, this is my turn to stand up on the soapbox.
Yeah,
I
but-
strongly endorse the COLA because our employees have done, I think, everything that the trustees have asked of them.
Yeah.
We put in 1.5 miles of pipe. On the sewer side, we're doing a lot of good things. We're keeping, you don't see sewer going down the street, we're very conscientious, we've got a good crew, and I would really feel real bad if they were not at least rewarded with a standard COLA step.
But the COLA is, it's discretionary, is at your discretion.
No, COLA, no,
COLA's
COLA,
not.
cost of living allowance, everyone would get a COLA.
Okay.
And that would keep our pay schedule current.
That is not necessarily a true statement.
No, it is a true statement.
It helps
No,
keep
it,
it.
it helps keep it, it's
It
one
may
of the
not
factors.
Well, without it, we're not
Market-driven.
going to stay current.
Market driven is
So,
the bigger factor.
Why do we need to study it?
Well, the
We have
COLA is
COLA
based
here,
upon the
yeah.
market and what
Last
the
year,
economy is
Right,
doing.
last year.
We did
last year.
COLA for the last 10 years, and what do we have to do? We have to spend a lot of money for salary studies.
well, actually, we didn't do COLAs. There were several years where,
Well, there's something with zero because that's what the COLA amount was.
Right.
right,
But
One
not
year.
because we didn't wanna do it, but
So-
10 years worth of COLAs and we still had to spend a lot of money for a study.
And we're not saying that they're not gonna get the money. I know Sid's position of this, cause he said it last year. At least the 2 of the 3 people who say I can't agree with the COLA at this moment, keep talking about more money.
so I wanna come back to that, but, a lot of times what I try to do is not come out too strongly for anything so that I can hold the conversation for people. I wanna talk about why I support the COLA. I think that everyone here, there are a couple of things. One is that I support Sid. He does a good job as a superintendent and he knows what the employees here need. And I have a strong regard for the frontline supervisor, CEO level. We hire him to be our executive. He has to run a very complicated shop. Not only did they do everything that were the goals, but they had to suffer through some pretty big, unexpected things too, including, I guess, one today. And people have worked above and beyond. And if a COLA that is not an actual break the bank COLA, incidentally. I mean, I've worked in my career long enough to know 1.6 was like, oh my God. But if a COLA to keep the steps a little more updated so they don't fall so far behind, it's a small incremental step plus a meaningful reward to everybody, plus including for the people who won't get a step and the people who are capped. We can find out how many that is. While we do the study, and this is something that people are familiar with, I think it's a vote of confidence in the superintendent who has a complicated workforce. And I want to say more about recruitment and retention. Everywhere you go, you hear people who are talking about high turnover. And some of that is not even due to compensation, but it's due to the culture that the management creates for the workforce. And I know it's got to be complicated here. A lot of people doing a lot of different jobs. Flexible has got to be what they are. And Sid does a a good job of keeping everybody together. And we don't have a high turnover rate, or we'd know we'd have trouble getting the crew out on the road, and you'd see those problems. Someone said to me that around some other comparable kinds of employees that they were having trouble keeping people. We don't. And that says a lot, not only about our compensation, but also about the workplace. And so I'm in favor of supporting our superintendent and what he knows about his workforce. And so that's why I support 1.6. That's why I support a COLA. I also support doing a study to see if we want to stay with steps. I don't think it's going to take a month to do that study. I think if the steps have to be revisited in the marketplace, reanalyzed every couple of years anyway, it could take us, I mean, we got a ton of complicated issues to think about in the water district side at least. So to transfer out of a steps program, which everybody's familiar with here, to performance-based, could take a year or two, and by the time that would come around, we either have to reinvent the steps anyway or have professional help to redesign a performance space. But in the meantime, I think we shouldn't just throw this card up in the air and reinvent it. I think we should stick with what we're doing in recognition of the employees here and to keep a workforce motivated, retained, and to support the superintendent. That's what I think.
One question, is there any indication that either water or sewer is going to have a rate increase?
We
Yes,
do.
We are.
Well,
We're working on it right now.
And I want to say something in that context. Our revenues are down. Yours are too on sewer side.
Well, yeah, but
And
I don't think we need a rate increase, but.
and
Not this,
And we're gonna
year,
have
but next
a rate
year we'll be
increase.
Seriously looking at it.
because our cash position is also down. And we will have people who say to us, how can you do this and also have a rate increase? And I know we will.
That's always an argument, but we don't need to worry about that part of it, the reading.
But I feel very solid in defending it.
I know what you're saying, and like I say, I come from the private sector, and
Yeah.
every year I had a review, and every year I got a bonus,
Mhm.
or I got a raise, or both. But
And
most
you might
most
move to-
employees did go through a
Right.
performance appraisal. If somebody wasn't doing a good job, it was a good time to talk to them.
Yeah.
And this is what's going on, buddy, maybe you don't want that person around. So it's the philosophical thing of, if the private sector had automatic COLAs, well, they didn't because they couldn't afford it.
Right.
So it's one of the automatic triggers that government
Right.
has that costs them money, a
Right.
fortune. Especially when you throw a union contract in there, it just
Yeah.
doubles and triples it.
It
And
doesn't
we
give
just
you
go
the
along,
opportunity for
and it's
exceptional
called
behavior.
status quo, it's always been done like this, we shouldn't change it.
I get the question.
So how does companies like the Lilacs became, grew to 18 warehouses and become a, $800 million company from a $75 million company in 10 years? By treating the employees terrible and, saying, well, I don't appreciate you. No, they appreciated the ones they appreciated. The ones they didn't, they didn't. So
I
that's why
think,
I believe the performance rather
I
than the
think
automatic.
it's a really good question to bring to
And not
us.
redoing the steps. I like the steps. I think we set up a series of steps because it is a technical job.
Right.
You need experience and you should get automatic increases for experience.
We're not gonna try to decide it
But I
today.
don't
I
believe
just
that the
wanted to say
automatic
what I
votes-
thought, cause I almost never do
Just my
anymore.
thoughts.
And I just decided that this
You
was the
should.
time that I wanted to say what I
And
said.
I appreciate
I support the
you.
superintendent.
Yeah.
I do.
So we have a couple of us on the water side who
But- And I
have,
don't think by not doing COLA, it's not supporting
well,
the
he
superintendent.
says why it's important to him.
Right.
So when I say I respect it, it is to say that if he thinks that helps him manage his workforce and rewards people, then I'm gonna listen to that. I also wanna say that I believe that it's worth a study to see what a transition off of steps to another system could be like, but that won't happen fast around here. I mean, we meet monthly, it takes us forever. Let's be honest, it's taken us forever to get things done. So we can't not have a compensation plan for next year while we study this. Because it's gonna take us 2 years.
That's why I keep bringing it up every year. I hope we do that.
Well,
Sometime we'll do it
I
this year.
hope you
maybe,
know that if I say we're gonna get it on our list, we're gonna get it on our list.
but It's just important to look at. It's a
I
philosophical
think
thing.
it's really important to look at it, but in the meantime, what are we gonna do? And I'm gonna tell you, when we talk about this next time, I'm solidly in this camp, and there might be some others of us who are on the water side, but there might not be. We have to have a whole board has to vote on this, and a majority will be the rule.
Tiz, you said you had some questions about the insurance
Yeah.
side that you wanted to bring down.
Yeah,
Are you satisfied with the insurance?
Mine has to do with what we, the district covers. That particular plan, I'm gonna make the motion on the water side that we adopt the recommended plan. But what we pay as a benefit, I have problems.
All right, so let's move to that now, and I'm just gonna call it the benefits, what's the right word to call it? Benefit
District, well, no, I don't.
reward, award. Or something.
The district court. Can I just ask one question on
Yeah.
wage and salary? Only because it will affect next year, because it's gonna affect this year. I hope is the reconciliation on paid lunchtime. So, salary and wages, because that's again, not acceptable.
So here's a question that Tiz has asked, has to do with does everyone get paid lunch? Or do some get paid lunch and some not?
And that came up because I understood from Sid at our meeting that the crews get a full paid lunch, the half hour, and that the office, the inside crews, do not get the half hour paid lunch. And I wanna make sure that all employees get the same thing.
And if it is true that the office people don't get paid for their lunchtime,
Let me get you, I'll get you a formal response to that one.
Good.
okay, Sid will
I don't
respond.
wanna take up this.
But whatever that is, if there is a discrepancy, one, I want us to take care of it now. Two, go back to January 1st. and reconcile.
Morrison and Sylvester created that.
I'm sorry?
Morrison and Sylvester created
I
that.
don't know who that is, but it doesn't matter to me.
It's
It's totally inappropriate. If
What
that's
it was is, we had to come in every noontime for 1 hour. So we were working way out on Monday
I
Avenue.
just have to ask, what does that have to do with,
Paying some
I
money.
mean,
That's how that came about.
okay, I don't care how it came about.
All
I
right,
have no interest, I have an interest in making sure that if we give paid lunch to one group of employees, we give paid lunch to the other group of employees. And that may be an incorrect, we may not be giving paid lunch, but if we do, all our employees need to get the same benefit. And if we've been doing that all this year, then we need to reconcile it and go back to the addition
Okay,
and put
now,
in next year.
Tiz has, and is this, you wanna pass out
Yeah,
your?
I unfortunately didn't get to print it, I think the staff here did, cause I put lines in it and stuff like that to be able to read it.
It's coming around.
Right.
Tiz has prepared something and she would like to speak to us about
So,
something on her mind.
Right, every
Let's do it
year,
online.
every
Oh,
year,
that's fine.
we talk
Look at
about,
me, I'm
a couple things. One, we talked about offering multiple plans. I think that this year, it's the first time in my 7 years that there would not be a second option in those plans. And then we talk about the difference in benefits to, individuals. And again, I am a person, you've heard me say this for coming up the end of 8 years, that we compensate all employees in the same manner. And if we look at our health insurance plans, it doesn't matter what numbers you put in here, these are the numbers that came off the October 30th pages, which had the reduction, the 4% that we can see, except for one place, and I had a question about it, because I assumed the calculation's wrong, but I can't figure out why.
I think you plugged in 699 is not correct.
I'm sorry?
699, I think you plugged in a erroneous number there.
Well, see, I was trying to find, where was the 699? Is that on those two, the 4.75?
The number one down below, go to the far right before 16.9%, you put in a 699.
Oh, I don't care about, no,
That was
on
the one you
something,
said that
that's sewer.
cost more than
I'm not
others.
at all, right, and I'm not interested in talking about sewer. I was gonna just send it in.
Okay.
Right. No, there would be if we didn't have
That's
sewer.
good. There's more than that in the sewer system,
Right,
you know, there's a
yes.
lot of other things there.
There's a fluid,
That's right.
So,
It's an inside joke.
I'm interested in making sure that we're equitable, particularly since in health insurance costs, there is a substantial difference. And the example is, under our planned premiums, we give people who are individual coverage, the district pays $574 for the benefit per month. If you have a family, you're 1,700, almost 1,800. That is too big. That's a $1,200 difference per month. That's a lot of money in difference for people doing an exceptional job who work for the same company. Marital status or that, or whatever you want to buy for health plans, is not. It's unfair. So we've talked about it for years. I can argue that marital status is not a protected class. Having children, for me, both of those are not bona fide jobs. And again, we are talking about exceptional employees here. And why treat them different? Well, it turns out when we do this, we only have 5 of our 17 people that have full family. So 2/3 of our employees we're treating less than a selected 5. And I feel strongly that has to stop. Now, I've heard the rules. We don't take anything away. I would do a plan over. I mean, there are many ways to address this, but I took the rule, no reduction in benefits to anybody, which means no reduction in benefits for those who need family coverage and want to buy it through the district. What I'd like to do, and this is the thing, is make it equitable. So I would say that we have a health insurance benefit of $1,779.60 a month. That's what the district will pay. And employees either have to have individual coverage or have to have a letter like we do, so some coverage. But any amount that the individual does not spend, they get the monthly difference in a check. In a check that will not get retirement benefits on it. It will have to have tax benefits, but that it's a stipend, and we need to specifically say does not include retirement. That gives everybody the same thing. I believe if we get the cash, because Sid's talked about this, if we had more money to give out, like right now we only give half the benefit if you don't take the plan, that more people would come out of our plan. That seems to be a goal. I'm not sure, but because I haven't spent that as much time there, whether that would have the impact. But for me, we have to start treating everybody alike. And in the past, I've heard, it used to be 12 people had the family, didn't have family, and 13 did, so we wouldn't go any further. This year we see only 5 of our members. And I'm not suggesting taking 1 penny away from the people, not 1 penny, that we would still give them. The $1,779.60 is the 85% of full family coverage. And all I want to do is give it to everybody. Now, implementing this, yes, it's a lot of money, and that's why if I was managing a business, I would say this is my goal. How do I get there, and how fast can I get there? And that's also why I want to take that funding that we have in the budget for COLA and lump it, because this is compensation. You talked a whole lot about why we need COLA, how exceptional our employees are, and you notice, please, I am not disputing that. And I support Sid's position, and I think our employees do an exceptional job. But if that's the case, then we damn well ought to stop treating people differently. And so this is my proposal. I think the numbers have to be worked out as to what would work in a budget, but the principle comes back. And the basic principle is we give everybody the same benefit. Now I can tell you, if you get through this year and you look towards the future, and we've been very fortunate in having a reduction, but some of us have looked at 14 and 17% rate increases in health insurance. This is also a much easier way to manage future increases, because you're then looking at, if it was $17.99 and they put in a 25% increase, you'd say, no, we can't do that. This is how much we can give, and the employees would have to make up the difference, and they may alter what their family structure looks like. But there are the numbers. For me, there should be no difference in the benefits. I took the 2020 maximum out. I didn't change anything from there. Realized less than 30% of our employees have full family coverage. I would take the COLA money and put it in there because, again, except for the 5, people are going to get substantial money. So it's not like they're going home with nothing in their paycheck. The 5, maybe we look at how we address those 5. And I don't know what grade or step those 5 are in. I did ask. And for me, I would freeze that number in future years until the employee section was more than that number. But for the other, for me, the reconciliation of feeling better about this is the other 12 will not have to take anything out of pocket for at least this year and coming year. So they've been penalized for, I know, at least 8 years, and they now will, we may be making up some of that. But that's my
So,
proposal.
it's a very
That's
well
it.
thought
It's a-
out proposal, thank you. I'm gonna first begin by letting anyone ask Tiz any questions that you might have to understand it better before we take a reading of how interested people are in pursuing it at this time. Any clarifying questions or information that would help you?
Well, it looks like this is a substantial cost
It is,
to us.
It is.
We're talking about,
But that's
those
because I
5
thought
employees
every-
is 5,000 a month roughly.
but it is because we live with that
$60,000 a
rule
year.
of no change in,
So I wholeheartedly believe in your philosophy, cause mine goes a little bit deeper than that employee benefits, we need to do something about them anyway. And I love this idea. I'm thinking though, maybe to put with it a little bit extra would be that we put a stipend for everybody, and lower their actual what we pay. Instead of paying 85%, we pay 50%, but then we give the rest of it to them in a stipend
Yeah.
that's frozen.
Yeah.
It's not subject to the 10, 12, 15% increase.
Yeah.
This year we have a decrease.
Yeah.
So that we pay less of the insurance, we have less exposure of the insurance, but we also pay the employee to reimburse them for that benefit difference. So in turn, along with the same thing, the person gets a stipend that they use to pay their insurance premium, even though we're not covering as
Right.
much.
Yeah. that would be,
And then
so
that helps
that's not
control
how
that
you do it.
Runaway
That's-
train that we can,
right.
that we got a COLA, 1%, 2% COLA, but then we have a 10% increase in insurance. Look what happened one year, 14% a couple of years ago. And wow,
Some of us. is
and we
bigger
absorb
than
that.
I
Most,
like
85%.
this concept. I mean, once again, at the next meeting, could Sid put some numbers together, reflecting in next year's budget, whether it add or subtract, or
we have that, but I think what we should, my recommendation, having done these, is that's a big number to bite off in 1 year. I would do it, but that's a big number to bite off, particularly for water that's got some other issues when we go for a rate increase, but this is also the time, because we're going for a rate increase, so do what's right. So I think what I'd suggest is, if the concept is good, that we do some choices, like what would his look like? You know, this is the, I'm gonna say best case, worst case, depending on which side. For employees, this is the best, because everybody's got the same thing,
well,
and not one person loses a penny. See, I would take the penny issue away.
I
And the
like
worst
it, but
case is,
I'm
it's
asking,
the most expensive for the
who's
district.
gonna put some numbers together, so,
Well, you've got the, if we did it perfectly, right here.
okay.
And they've
But
got
you're
that.
suggesting we can't do it all this year?
Well, yeah, I didn't hear that. I heard Andy say, could we look at,
So
way
what-
to stage it?
What's your,
I wanna run choices when everybody tells me how they want it, cause, his thing, I can then ask him, so do you wanna change it from
this could be a
80,
first
20?
step and then go
Right,
to the
right.
next step.
okay, I
As
like
long
the
as you have a
concept, so I
stipend
mean,
program
I'm
in
just trying,
place,
how we
you can-
implement it.
You can massage the stipend program, because now what you're doing is you're offering a stipend in lieu of insurance.
Taking it, right, you're
Now
giving
we've already
everybody the
taken that
benefit.
step to saying, okay, why don't we reduce what we pay for the insurance, but we stipend it to the employee?
Yeah.
And then we're not as,
Yeah.
as the employees.
Yeah, the reason I put this in a stipend, and again, it has versus a change in the salary, and why I keep repeating, for most people, they wouldn't think it mattered, is, if it's not a stipend and it's part of wages and there isn't an exception in the retirement plan, you would have to add the cost of retirement benefits on all of this, and that's where stuff like that gets really messy. The other thing is, I would expect that when the premium is paid, the employee who doesn't use the whole premium gets a check that next pay run. So that we don't, since it would be the same pay run in every month, and if cash flow was a problem, again, now we're getting into the weeds, maybe they can't do it the first of the month for cash flow because they pay the premium to the health plan, so the next pay period, they would give the remaining cash, but some consistency.
Can you give me an example of where this has been done? This concept has been done?
Well, I've never seen every business that I've been in pays the benefits are the same by class of
Pretty
employee.
much, yes.
Now, we can have different classes of employees, And the best example I'll give you is physicians' practices, because that's the one I'm most intimate. So physician practices typically have two classes of employees, owners and administration, and everybody else. So for owners and administration person, they'll pay full family coverage. For the other class of employees, they only pay the employee portion, but they, in my case, 100%. But that is, and by groups that will vary, but every practice that I have personal experience with, 25 years in both the business and in consulting, I have never seen anybody give benefits strictly on marital status and children. Age is a different story, which is why life insurance is different, because it's our employee who's different, and the age. So I don't mind paying 3 times as much for an elderly person or a sick person, but I have a real problem having a class of employees that are being treated differently.
Could you put some numbers together for this next meeting on this?
Well, I guess I'll do anything that the trustees have reached
Well, let's
consensus
do
to do.
a straw poll on this. How many people would like to see more information? I tried to capture what I was hearing. Some of the costs and questions are, how many people would like to see more information worked up for our workshop by next Tuesday?
Is this something we're looking to implement this year?
Yes.
This, as part of this budget?
Yep. For water, I only speak for water.
Well, let's just get, how many people would like to see more information before they make any decision?
If we're talking about implementing for this year, I'm a no.
How many people would like to see more information?
Well, if there is more information to have, I see it right here, I think.
Well,
it's
I could do
pretty-
your proposal that you suggested is, what if we use the sample,
Well, that's
make another
something,
sheet?
you know, I don't know if we can
Well, that would-
redesign that.
But that would help for
I just think,
funding.
I like the idea of getting to the point where we're paying less benefits and more salary. Because again, we're held hostage by the spiraling costs of healthcare.
Yeah, it's out of our control.
Unfortunately, it's out of our control and it just gouges us, and because we have a plan in place, we have to take it. I'd like to go away from that, but still pay the employee. This
So-
might help us, give us a step to get.
Is there, I'm just gonna ask, I mean, we may need more, I mean, we have been fortunate with Tiz, who has an HR professional background, but sadly, her term is coming to an end and she's chosen to reapply. We may need some more outside help.
I think that our district, because I think we're being unfair to our superintendent, because he does all, we mentioned this earlier. I think that we should be giving our superintendent support in the same manner we did in the past for financial director till we got our in-house, which is we contracted outside for services. So I think
Right.
we should contract either for a consultant and have it in-house to get it, but do the review, what is it we need, where else have we had this work to do, and give him the resources to have somebody else do this. And
But wouldn't
bring
that
it
take
out.
beyond this year, more
I don't-
practical for next year, not this year?
Well, that may be true, but
See,
that's
that's-
unrelated to this.
What
It's
I'm
unrelated.
wondering, because what I'm hearing is really a moment to stand back and look at what I know enough about HR to know is actually called total compensation. And, you know, you tweak one little thing and all of a sudden you can have a flow of unintended consequences, including tax things, you know, what's pre-tax for employees, what isn't. And you know, just to try to do this.
And I agree, cause I don't think we're taking full advantage of things that our
Right.
employee could benefit on just what you're
And
talking
we
about.
had our
Pre-tax
nice
benefits.
little employee benefit work group that a couple of us were part of, and truthfully, without you, with your expertise, we floundered because we don't know enough HR to really have an intelligent conversation.
And we stopped meeting. I was
Well,
gone 1 month and then
you
I
were
came
go-
back and.
Well,
because
there
we
were
had water.
3 of us. I was the only water person, and we were the 3. And truthfully, we didn't have a good way to proceed, and we wrapped it up. But I'm wondering if what we're really saying is your case is persuasive, but there's a lot to be thought about here and how we do it, how we implement it, how we understand it as it relates to other forms of compensation.
Actually, it doesn't well, because if you morph to my plan,
Yeah.
right, we go to 50%, employee pays more of their insurance, which they deduct off from the money. If we're stipending them the same amount, they've actually come out ahead by whatever the taxes will
And
be
if
on
they
that
have a
money.
family member who, can get equal insurance at less cost, they'll put more in their pocket as
So
well.
what I'm wondering is a way to move forward that's both more well-informed than we can become between now and this budget. And it also allows us to have better quality conversations with the employees for whom we may be proposing significant changes. Not that they're bad changes for everybody, but it's a big thing to just say to everybody all of a sudden. And we haven't really studied this, is that one thing we might want to budget is some kind of HR consulting.
And on this, you could budget this and not do it, because we're not talking about necessarily implement. I think it can be done January 1st, but if you got that going, but this, I'm talking about budgeting. So just like if we have a difference in the lunch issue, and I said we're gonna go back to January 1st, you could budget this, progress the way we are, have that person do that work, and then distribute the money in whatever the recommended way is.
That is an option.
So that the commitment is there to treat all employees equally. And the resource is there to do the job right to ensure no unintended consequences.
I mean, I wouldn't even think I would know how much I could support and how much to budget if we're gonna try to do a staged implementation. I mean, if you're talking about putting $30,000 extra dollars.
Talk about
Oh, yeah.
$120,000.
Yeah, you're talking about, yeah,
For
that's
the year.
right, these are months,
Oh,
so they're a much bigger number. But again, if you don't know where your goal is, this might be a 10-year goal. My goal is everybody paid equally. How we get there is the second question. As I said at the beginning,
well, I'd
this
be
is
hard.
the best or worst case.
So I'm just gonna say for myself, I'd be hard pressed to budget anything for it personally in my own mind without but understanding that there's some amount of agreement here that it's really important to study this, is to actually make a commitment that's gonna include needing to get some professional help to study it.
And getting sewer to also agree to that.
We do not need sewer, they're separate contracts. I'm tired of having the tail wag the dog.
Well, we're having this conversation together so that
Once
we
again,
can.
I like the concept, I'm just trying.
You can do what you want.
Whoa. We are trying to work together on this. I hear a spirit of cooperation to say it's not us versus them, but there does need to be, before just speaking from the water side now, but thinking collectively, that it'd be hard to even begin to budget towards $120,000 extra a year without a lot of professional HR help helping us think about the total compensation program, and that's gonna take time. And finding the right
I
consultants
think
to
what we
help
should do
us.
is at some point, maybe one of the next meetings we should have, I believe we're policymakers.
Hold on a second here, let's all be together here. Whoa, no sidebar, Tanya, and, no, hold on, Andy's talking, one
I was just
person
saying,
at a time.
we're policymakers, we can't go through the weeds.
Right,
I don't have the experience that Tiz does,
yeah,
but,
right.
but do we believe in the philosophy, and we should have a motion and vote on the philosophy of equalizing the benefit packages for all employees.
That's,
And then the next step is to find out how we do that. But really, all we can do is vote on the philosophy, the idea, like the COLA, yes or no, up or down vote for COLA, yes or no. Same as here, if this sounds good to people, I think we need to vote for yes, we're in favor of finding a way to equalize the benefit package through your idea,
Whatever
what I was
way
saying,
or
that we're a
there.
combination of stipend and lower the percentage we're paying, there's a lot of options here. But if we don't agree with the philosophy, we shouldn't even go to the next step.
thank you for that, excellent help. Now, let me, I'm just equalize with it, it's a vote, and COLA, yes or no?
And
It's
that
a
would be
vote.
a motion in a regular meeting, say, listen,
Yeah.
you're in favor of this.
So, straw poll, how many people here would be in favor of at least looking at the question in the ways that Andy has agreed? And, okay, so we got 4 and 4 of each district is if we agreed that we're going to understand how to equalize the package, the benefit packages, but we don't know how to do it yet.
Right.
And that what we would need to do then is get some professional HR support for understanding that question and how to do it. Then that's our role. And it doesn't, I think that makes sense, and we
That's-
stick together here.
There's all kinds of things we can get out of, like I said, you know,
Yeah, thank
doing
you,
like things
Randy.
just because we always did them before is not always the answer.
Right.
This is a great way to, maybe it can be an incentive, maybe we'll do something different that'll let people knocking down the doors, cause we have a plan.
I'd like to
that's so
change
good.
my vote on the coal thing right now, because once again, based on what we're talking about in this package, the COLA is part of this package.
Yes, it is.
And once again, I'll change my vote at this time, because once again, we haven't come up with a better alternative.
You know what, thank you, I think, I would like to think in terms of multi-year, we gotta do a budget for 2020. And then we already really should have in our mind 2021.
I bet she does, cause Greg had a piece of paper, he could tell us the next 5 years, and I bet she
Collectively,
does.
all
So let
of
us know
us
that.
as trustees wanna think, so we do have, the timing of the 2020 budget, and isn't it nice, we're really coming ahead of the game here, we got some
Yeah,
good
for a
consensus,
change.
for a change.
Right.
And we're already really thinking about some questions that we might not implement to 2021. But I somehow managed to live to the point that seems like it's gonna be here in the blink
Faster
of
than
an
that.
eye.
Yeah.
And so it's good to say, these are the questions that we'll look at them in 2020 for 2021. And what I wanna honor with you, Tiz, is that you really have thought about it a lot, talked about it a lot,
Yes, they would say those who've known me for 8 years.
and you as you begin to conclude your service here, I'm not surprised that you worry that these things will
Not so
disappear.
much though,
I'm sorry,
I'm the short timer, you march,
I'm March.
so.
And you'll hear us start the work, we won't get it finished. But I think we can, with the consensus we've got here, you're gonna hear that we're on track to do this work. And it's on the video too.
It would be disrespectful to say, but we've said other things like that. Last year at this time, we agreed we would do something about health insurance, and we did.
Well,
And we have good
we
reasons.
tried,
We lucked out, we literally lucked out.
right,
Thank you, Sid,
right,
and the industry.
we tried.
But once again, that's my long-term thing. I know we have to do something about health insurance, about the 40 plays, all that kind of stuff. So once again, it'll be a good subject to get into, and hopefully we can get something out of it.
It's kind of-
So would you like to add a line item to this year's budget for some type of HR study?
Yeah. And not knowing who even does that work, but check
I
around.
asked my question, could you do it?
No, I think this is good, I mean, HR is a real specific, HR law's gotten complex. You gotta have people that's what they do for a living.
You wouldn't do this without professional help,
I mean, you got,
absolutely.
But our long-term plan could be that we develop it in-house, our long-term plan. Now we can't, but our long-term plan could be,
Well, yeah, once you understand what you're doing, you can do it in-house, but now we don't know what the hell we're doing.
And we're better off not doing it.
well, you know what, I think, I wanna recognize a couple things that
I
are
move
sort
back
of
to the
the threads here, and then have a conversation of what we're gonna put on hold for next Tuesday. I think, in line with what you just said, I think, what we're doing is identifying the things we need to study and be prepared to act on with more information. But until that time, we we might wanna be careful not to tinker or change until we know what we're changing to. And the reason for that is, in my mind, is that we do owe our employees stability and well thought through policy changes and well communicated policy changes when the time comes after we study them, and I think that is important. Now, it's 7:30. We do have on our books a follow-up workshop for next Tuesday at 4. And we could talk about equipment then, or we could press on now and see if we're almost done tonight.
Let's talk about it next Tuesday.
I was
Well, I
gonna
have
say, do you
to
have
leave,
the list?
so.
Do you have the list, Sid? So, what is it?
And it's
Could
your
we at
packet
least get-
too.
It's in the
So
packet.
It's in your packet.
before we leave HR, there's something I wanna say to both boards. I think Sewer has been paying close attention to this, but I wanna say it to the Sewer trustees too. It was a year ago that in the implementation of the salary, after the salary survey, I'm gonna embarrass it, but I'm sorry about that. It was learned that our superintendent's salary is considerably below market. And, the deal was struck that upon his annual review, he got half of the salary step increase, at the first of the year, or on his anniversary date, but that upon completion of his annual review, he would get the other half. And that annual review has taken longer because there hasn't been one before. We are on track on the water district side to have completed, every trustee will have completed the evaluation form on November 20th. And that will be coming to me, and I will work out the water side of his evaluation. This man deserves his raise upon satisfactory completion. I wanna ask the sewer trustees, if you could I think that someone sent you the evaluation form, as I understand it. I wanna tell you that it was developed, we have paid the cost for all the legal counsel to help us do this process right. It is based off the job description that we approved, that updated his job description, and that was what the lawyer said to do. And then the evaluation form takes every line of his job description and puts an evaluation line, and we will have completed that, and then all I have to do is summarize it. If sewer doesn't do it, that on any kind of timely way here, we can give him half of his raise. But you can't give him his other half of his raise because you haven't done it based on his evaluation, because you haven't done the evaluation.
Why don't we just give him the raise and then look to the evaluation, do what it wants to do? I would give him his raise back retroactive to January 1st, personally.
Yeah, but the problem we have is right now, we've got a situation going on with the school district, the pressure's on them dramatically. We've had a problem in Mechanic Falls, it was highly publicized because procedure wasn't followed and what was required wasn't followed. Manager was let go without the proper whatever. I'm not saying this is like that, but it can cause the same
What's
problem.
happening in the
If we
school
don't-
committee? I mean, it just blew up the whole school committee.
3 years without an evaluation, now they're gonna fast track one and
So,
just
what
do
I
it.
wanna say to sewer,
But that doesn't mean we can't give him the
Well,
raise he
You're
is
looking
due.
to get this.
Are we going to get
Well,
into that
we're
discussion because
wait.
we're revisiting?
I don't know.
I wanna just say this, cause this relates to HR, and that's what we were doing tonight is personnel. If you have, I could write you or whoever is serving as your chair now, I mean, I know, I just don't hear from Heidi.
Well, I'm trying to think,
How can you catch up? That's
Well,
why
no,
I
I'm
can tell
trying-
you that.
I'm trying to, when the sewer meeting be? Not next Tuesday,
19th.
the 19th.
So here's what you could do on the 19th.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Let me tell you what you could do. You could
I know
do,
what I'm gonna do.
but she knows about it, she's talked about it at a couple
alright,
of meetings.
have you voted to
I wasn't
approve?
at the last meeting, so I don't know if they.
No,
Here's
once
what
again,
you-
it's never been brought up to vote.
So this is what you need to vote on. I'm just gonna tell you right now. If you vote to approve his job description on November 20th and vote to approve the job evaluation form and ask that it be completed and back to you within a week. This is doable.
Well, that's why I asked the date, because once again, I can say, okay, I'm all right with it, but once again.
But
Well,
you
they
have
can do
to-
the third form with the two pieces in front of them. Every person's seen those, they might have to not, they may not have taken the actual votes, which they could do on the
You
19th, but they can do all the
legally
work.
have to vote
Right,
on
but
the
they can
job
do it all
description. You
on
could
the
vote
19th.
on two things on the 19th. The job description and the evaluation form. And if you vote on those, you could distribute it, everybody gets it back to whoever the designee is, you, in a week. Whoever's gonna serve as chair,
He's the big,
Well,
he's the big guy.
Heidi just isn't here because she couldn't come tonight.
Yeah.
get it back to Heidi then in 1 week. And then she will compile it, and the procedure is you need to have one other trustee join the president of the board in compiling the information from the evaluations. And then, I will ask on the 20th for one of our trustees to join me in compiling the information, and then the two presidents will meet with the superintendent. And I believe we owe this to Sid. And we also owe it to us all to do it right. And that's why we had legal counsel help us with this, and we are doing it by the book. And I think we owe it to Sid to do it by the book, so no one ever comes back at him and says, yeah, but, they bent the policy for you. He will never have to be embarrassed by the process we use. And we will have done it exactly right. And I do believe that upon a satisfactory review, his raise should be retroactive back to when he would have gotten it. Because it's just been a prolonged process for us, and we owe him this money. And I'm sorry if I've embarrassed you, Sid, I could have just asked you to leave the room, but I think we will be done.
Had this
Used to has been brought up every month since January.
Well, we have voted every step of the way to do this right, and we will have done it right.
We had a trustee leave the sewer district,
Mhm.
and he said, every month we evaluate Sid at the meeting. We know how he's doing by what's coming
And
out,
where's the documentation for your employee record that you've done that?
by the notes.
That's not an evaluation.
Not by legal standards, I mean, yeah, it is, but it's not by legal standards, and it's, the way it's going now, it's all around us.
Whoever
It's
sued-
all
Yeah,
around
but
us.
you
All
gotta
you gotta do is
remember,
put some checks on the phone, that's all you gotta do.
5 years
Yeah,
from
what
now,
sewer does is-
these legal standards may not be.
Oh, yeah.
Then we'll worry about 5 years from now.
I don't
Today,
care
these are
about
the
5
legal
years.
Hopefully every year, though,
Sid,
we'll be doing it.
the piece I quickly saw in here, missing the third big element in our budget is capital projects.
Yep, and I've got a copy of our capital, I did not include it in this.
Could
Packet.
you email it to us?
I've got it right here,
Okay.
All right,
I can pass it out if you want.
Yeah,
In
and then
just a
it
minute.
needs to go electronically to
I've
everybody.
got one other thing I have to say. I promised one of our trustees that I would pass this out to everybody, so there it is. And this is trustee Dan Bilodeau's views on the budget, somehow or other it duplicated itself. So you get two versions of it together, I don't know how that happened on one page, but it's Dan's thoughts, and I think we're on track to honor what he said, and I told him I would pass this out. Okay, so we wanna spend 20 minutes talking about equipment before we say, good night?
Can we just
No,
get
no,
the
we're gonna talk
paperwork on projects so we
Yeah.
have a
Projects,
complete
yeah.
package? He doesn't have to talk about them, but one is that we have them so we can go home and do our work.
Yep.
And two, that they're electronically available, so that we.
And remember, capital is, it should be included in that packet, but as you know, the capital is not approved as part of our annual budget.
Well, except that we need to look at it.
Yeah, you need to
because,
see it, yeah.
I know we go back and individually approve projects like at round
Right,
2 of
right.
confirmation, but we do budget because it's in a line item. Thank you.
You wanna look at equipment as well?
We have equipment in here, right?
Like,
It's
yeah.
same as
I
equipment.
saw the equipment in here.
This is the
Want me to-
sewer.
You wanna go through and see it?
You guys want
This-
one?
no. So on
Sewer-
water
sewer-
projects, on water projects, then we're looking at, thank you, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
It would be
15
helpful,
projects for a total of $810,000.
Yep.
And that gets us at 1.557 miles of pipe.
Right.
So what would be helpful for me in, looking at this real quick, if we at some point could get an inventory of what's in the ground and what it looks like, it's categorized, condition.
Sure.
And then how this fits in, is this based on road work that's coming up, or is it based on the
partially.
oldest pipe?
Combination.
I'd like to just see where the oldest pipe is and how that fits here, that's all.
And
But I think it's gotta be a priority if you, obviously, if you got a limited budget, what do you work on? And I know you've done a good job.
We've
but
got
it's like-
the last time we did our increase, we have a 20-year capital improvement plan and also a, condition assessment narrative that goes over the.
Could we have both of those?
So all the
Did
pipes
you
in
already
there.
done them?
I've
So what did you
never
call
seen
them?
one, but I heard
Something,
they have
We have a 20-year
Capital improvement plan.
capital replacement program and system assessment report.
and that system assessment is annual?
No, this was submitted as part of the last rate increase we had, but it showed the next, I think, 5 years
From
of
rate
priorities
to
for
rate
where we
increase,
want
right.
to be.
So it shows all the pipe we have and how it's categorized, or what condition it's in, or how old it is, or.
So in round numbers, we know we need to do 2.7, and we're currently only budgeting 1.55. How are we going to meet the 2.7 need?
Put in 50% rate increase.
Is that the only way to do it?
Yeah, that's quite a bit of.
And will
that's
that
a lot
get
more
us,
than we're doing
will
now.
that get us to 2.7?
Well,
Like it's
50% would get us
6.7?
6 years worth of, construction, cause that's about every 3 years we get a 20% increase.
There was a, I don't know
You
if
know,
it's,
I'm serious about this, so with a 50% rate increase now, give us enough money to do 2.7 miles of pipe per year till our next rate increase.
we actually, I should pass this around. This is something that,
No,
pass that, Jason Pauline actually,
No.
after our last water trustee meeting, asked some different scenarios. One of them was,
Oh, did you
we
email
will
us
check
this?
it tomorrow.
I think so, but, no, I'm glad that you gave it to me.
No.
I can go with you.
No, maybe tomorrow morning.
did you have a question, Jason?
To do this 1.55 miles of pipe.
Right.
As you listed here, does this require us to have a 15% rate increase in order to meet this minimum? And then survive our cash flow and all that, 'cause
If there is,
Yeah, what was the rate increase the budget's based on?
if there is no,
well, this budget has no rate increase.
No, I thought
no,
you
it
put
doesn't,
Yes,
this
no.
existing budget has no rate increase.
And a loss of
We
cash on,
we might not be able
and a
to,
loss of cash on hand.
right, we might not be able to complete this list without a rate increase, because
Yeah.
when you see how the revenues track, we might not be able to complete some.
Cause right here, we're losing the $250,000 of cash.
We're probably looking at a mile of pipe this year
So,
without a rate increase.
so we need a rate increase, and
We
the
do.
maximum we were allowed to go up
This 50 was
is the 15%.
that's right.
So what happened?
At least in this one step. So
Correct.
if we wanna do 2 miles of pipe or more, we'd have to have another rate increase.
That's right. Yeah, we could not put a rate increase
So,
in
okay,
that
so
would give us
here's
that.
here's the question that's on the list I was gonna submit. If we can only increase the amount that will cover just 1.5 miles of pipe, if that's the maximum we're allowed to increase our rates, then what is the state's solution to, we need 2.7 miles of pipe? Or we need, pick a thing, I don't wanna use the word filtration plant, cause I don't think that's a good question to use, but if a district has a need greater than the limit, what do they do?
Well, no, because.
But bonding
doesn't
still
pay.
you have to pay it, so,
Oh, I understand
so,
that.
but so you could
Yeah,
exceed
but you
the
spread
limit,
that out over a lot.
but you could
That
still
15%,
exceed.
that 15% that we had, put in there was the maximum that we're allowed to put as a
Right.
one-time.
Right, you told us that.
Yeah.
So the question is, if we have a need in capital projects greater than the 1.5, than the money, what does the state expect us to do?
You'd have to have subsequent rate increases in following years.
Yeah, but my building blew up, I gotta replace the building. We know we have to replace it, a rate increase is coming, they're telling us we can only rate increase.
I'm not sure, I'd have to look into that closer because
They have to go out
the
and borrow money
PUC
and then
But
worry
so
about it.
borrowing
if
still
there was
doesn't
if
solve
there was
it.
an
We need to
emergency-
bond.
Then the next year you get ready to have your rate increases and make
But
sure.
you
like
can't
if we were
borrow, you
if we
can't
were
pay
told if we were told next year we have to put in a filter,
Yes,
say that
that's what you
happened,
said, right.
then that probably would not be in the same category as we
Well,
want
they
to
would allow
accelerate our
But that-
infrastructure
so
replacement.
we need to see what those exceptions are, because old pipes may be an exception, because we hear one thing, we hear, nope, this is the maximum we're allowed, and then we say, well, but.
There is a way with the PUC that you
There's
can play
gotta
with.
be a way when you need money, and we need to have sufficient funding to do 2.7 miles of pipe, and it isn't just, it's what money, how much we cost, because we do a great job in-house, but I'd be surprised if our crew,
Well,
even
this
if
is
you
where the-
hired,
Yeah.
could
This-
get up enough to get to.
This is where the whole study, what needs to be replaced,
Right.
and how much time does it take to replace it, that's the case you'd make to them. Cause I wouldn't wanna have us allowed to have rate increases to the point of 3 miles a year, when we're done, we're still charging the same amount, cause we gotta replace 3 miles, unless that's a continual thing
Two
forever.
point seven miles will be forever, 2.7 miles per year,
Will be
without adding
forever.
more lines. If we add another 10 miles of
Sure.
pipe,
Another,
then that's in 50 years, a half a mile a year. Based on 135 miles of pipe, I'd like a step less, that's a 2.7
that's where I go
miles
back
per
to
year.
the bonding question then, cause we can get it done quicker, and
Right,
we wouldn't have to be doing 2.7 miles every year, we'd eventually get to a point where we wouldn't have to do that much.
not in
Casey,
50 years.
I misspoke, Casey. We could do that 1.5 miles this year. However, we would need to move back to 1 year in subsequent years because our cash flow and stuff.
So we'd have to,
That
yeah.
was that's listed.
And we could do the increase later too, if we had to. I mean, we don't have to do it before the end of the year, or,
Rate increase?
yeah.
The sooner
There
we
we
get
go.
the rate increase, the
Soon
sooner
as we
we'll have
start
the
getting-
cash.
right.
So if you read a lot of these questions are answered.
Right, I answered
here.
this in, right,
Okay.
right.
So I'm gonna talk about the responsibility, and I'll speak now just on water district side, because our cash position's at 70 days? And the industry standard is 100. And no matter how much pipe we do or don't replace, I think we have a fiduciary responsibility to replenish our cash supply. And,
That's assuming if you're using a fund balance rather than a piggy bank for capital improvements. A fund balance is a
right
little
now.
different, you have to maintain a fund balance all the time, just like city does.
Yeah.
But they're not supposed to dip into it, they do, but they're not supposed to.
We don't have a
But
fund
we're not
balance.
talking
I know.
about that, now
When
we
you
don't
talk about
have
the
it, number 2,
70,
we're at
our
70
fund
days
balance
of.
is cash on hand.
Okay, so what are we going to, I'm sorry, Mary,
That's
fine. Most of the state.
I'm just putting it, I wanna
what are
make
we going
sure-
to do we're down to 70 days, and I wanna be clear again, I've been pretty, come on, it's while I'm going out with this. This is not the staff's error or omission or responsibility. They have reported to us every month, and we have chosen to ignore the question. So now we're at 70 days. Even if you put a rate increase in tomorrow, you're not gonna have 71 days the next day. I would recommend that you do what every business does. I thought we had one, or would have had one, is to establish a line of credit now, pick a number. I would pick the number to make sure we always have 100 days on hand. Talk to your bank. You don't pay anything unless you use it, except it's usually an administrative fee. My personal one is $50 a year. I don't think I've ever paid one as a business, but again, I've been retired for 14 and bankers charge everything. Get it in place, because you only use it if you need it. But we'd stop the worrying that we're at 70 days going down, and staff could focus on other things than saying, oh, well, do we not do this project, or do we not?
Why don't we apply for the minimum rate increase, so we don't have to go through all the hoo-ha, and there a minimum amount we can do.
That won't even get us to the 100 days.
No, but I mean, that's the start, maybe do that more often, smaller increases more often.
Right, our problem is we're at 70 days today.
I know,
What are we going to do for the next 90 days?
I think you can figure that out, if it's a line of credit that handles that.
Well, that's where
Well,
we are. What are we going
again,
to,
the only issue with the line of credit is if you dip into it, you're paying an interest rate,
Which is, yeah.
but you're only gonna pay it if you get into it. So if we
But
don't
if,
have a
but
line
if we
of
do
credit,
something with a raise, we don't have to
but we're
use
not
a high
gonna get the money
interest
for the
line
rate
of credit.
increase for at least 60 to 90 days from today. If we voted a rate increase on Wednesday,
So,
we've gotta jump through the hoops.
That's what I tried to do last month, so
Right,
that's why we
but
need
you know
to-
what, we didn't have the information in order to do appropriate in the public.
so, the one thing I wanna say,
What else do we need for information, I guess?
that
They didn't have the information prior to the meeting, it sat at the table and it's inappropriate to do a
Do we
rate
need more
increase.
information going forward?
On a rate increase, I
Yes.
don't, other than, can I get more?
so on November 20th, I am going to ask our board to vote on a rate increase. And we should all, we're gonna try to vote on a budget if we can. We're gonna try to vote on a budget, on a rate increase if we can. It is our responsibility to do these things.
Mhm.
The one that is most time sensitive is the rate increase. The budget, if we have to bump it into December, we bump it into December. But we're here tonight and we're gonna be here next Tuesday night to try to get these things done. But I do wanna say that, at the November 20th meeting, I am going to ask for a vote on a budget, a rate increase.
But you got a number in mind?
The maximum allowed,
15%.
cause that's what we can.
Hey, I
Well,
like that.
This is.
You don't get a vote.
Water.
I know it. Hey, I can bring it up in my meeting.
So if
It becomes a matter of the public.
Mary, if we get the 15% vote on November 20th, when does our cash on hand problem get resolved?
Okay.
What was that?
If we pass a 15% rate increase on November 20th,
Mhm.
when does the cash on hand issue get resolved?
Sometime it would be resolved within 2020.
Yeah, that's not a close enough answer.
Well,
We're
I don't know
at
because
we're at
I'm not, it's based upon the revenue we take in.
But we know the revenue, because you wrote, so.
We
let's write
budget for
this up.
revenue.
So you know the rate increase amount, you know the rate that we know as a result, the
Mm-hmm.
amount of additional revenue that will come in. We have an approximate time, because you know, from the time we vote to when it gets put in place and built.
Well, you gotta go through the public.
Well, wait, he knows that though.
Yeah.
So we know how long it takes to go from vote to build.
It'd be like April.
And then we,
Yeah.
so, if we're at 70 days today, and we need cash greater than what's on hand, what is our plan? That's what I wanna know. We have a fiduciary responsibility to know. And I do not believe that we will see any funding from the rate increase before March 1st. Funding, cash in the bank. Now, I wanna be proven wrong.
No, that's right, because
What do we
the
do
rate
between
wouldn't
now
take
and
effect, the rate wouldn't take effect until then.
So,
we have to have some
okay,
numbers.
so now we're at 70 days today. What will be our forecasted cash on hand? Cause I know she has this answer someplace.
You mean on March 1st,
I
or?
forget. What will our rate, if, based on what we know now and the flow of our cash, how much cash on hand will we have? I pick
On March,
January 1st,
Yeah.
because I think that.
well, say February 1st, that's 1 month away from my.
So is there a way to project that number?
Well, what's the real long-term question? What is it? Well, we could give you some numbers to give
Yes.
you the day that it's gonna
Somebody catch
occur.
that number.
But what is,
I think her concern is that she wants to make sure we have a plan. If we're scared at 70%, we better have a backup plan between now and March.
no,
Or
because
if
we
we
can
need-
control our expenditures, so it's not as
You're
if.
not gonna pay payroll?
That's right.
You're not gonna
No,
pay a
we
rate?
have cash on
You're
hand.
not gonna buy pipe, that's your answer, thank you.
But you're not gonna
We're
do
not
that,
gonna buy
though.
a
But you're
truck.
not gonna be doing
We're
anything.
not gonna be right, and between now and February, we don't have pipes, so it's not like we're gonna save money on
We're
pipes,
putting pipe in the
because we're
ground
not
in
gonna be putting
January.
pipes in. So now we're talking about vehicles and equipment. And I don't
No,
believe that
no,
you
because
can.
we don't spend down money to put pipe in the ground until summertime.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to, if we are at 70 days today,
Mhm.
how many days will we have as cash on hand? You know our
March
expenses
1st.
pick a number. I think it's January 1st, cause we've been going down, 10 or 15
So-
days a month.
It's kind of, I know what you're getting at, but it's sort of a convoluted question
It
at the
isn't
same
though.
time.
It's-
It is,
That's a
because
cash
So I
we
want,
can manage,
alright,
we
I
need to,
wanna
if we're going
ask,
to budget
if
for
there's
putting 2
one
miles of pipe in
person
the
in
ground.
this room besides the staff who knows the ins and outs of this better than anybody else, it's Casey. Would you be willing to talk to Sid and Tanya to do your best to get the information that Tiz has asked.
Historically, where will we be on January?
I don't know, there's a
Can it
reason
be
for us to even
repressed?
ask that question.
Well, because I'm worried that we're gonna need cash and it won't be available to us.
So is
A
there,
line of credit is reasonable to consider,
That's what, all I want.
and that should not be rocket science
But
to
we're
us.
hearing opposition from the
But we don't have
superintendent,
to take
that
any
would
money
take
out,
care of it.
and we don't, as trustees,
Let's
need
hope
to
we
know what our cash on hand is gonna be January first or February
We
first.
don't, if we have a flow.
We
so,
gotta get back to 100 days on hand.
so,
A rate increase is gonna
I
be
just
needed.
wanna, because it's 5 of 8.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I just wanna put this piece, so this is a water district question. If we need a line of credit, we can get a line of credit, right? Did we need a board vote to have a line of credit?
But don't look at me,
No, you don't have to have a board vote to get it, you'd have to get a board vote to use it.
So,
If he had to dip into a line of
Sid
credit, it was gonna
understands
cost
that if
money,
he
then he would
needs
have
to do that, he can do that, and he has now heard it affirmed here. We are going to vote on a rate increase on November 20th, and I'm going to say pretty clearly that I'm gonna ask 4 trustees to join, 3 more trustees to join me in voting for a minimum of 3. I do not want it to get tied to cost sharing with Lewiston, that's a different topic. This is a fiduciary responsibility that we must have a rate increase. It has nothing to do with anything else but doing our job responsibly. It is Sid's job to manage expenses and get a line of credit if our cash gets too low. And I wanna say that Sid first told us, cause I went through all my notes, in April of 2018, that we needed to do that. And we are right at the time, he done,
Yes.
and he gave us information in September. He gave us more information in October, and we're going to vote on it in November, and I need 4 people to do it, and I'm voting yes on it, and Casey is voting
And I'm
yes on it.
voting yes on the full amount, cause that's gonna be your other item.
I've got 3,
Full amount.
and I'm gonna need a 4th.
Well, you'll get the 4. I'm just saying, I'll vote against it because it's gouging the city, and I still haven't got a good explanation of why it has to be that way. And number 2, I think we still have to look at various ways of smoothing this out. Not waiting till you run out of cash before you gotta
Did you
raise
So
the.
when you were
information on
voting,
I got it right here, but it still doesn't explain how you
So
come
did
up
I
with
hear
28%, which is what you're charging the city, 28%. The full 6% to 30%, and the city's getting charged 28. So the
No, it's
maximum is
19,
30.
no, it's 19% of our revenue.
Well, I come up with 28 when I
No,
use the formula
it's not.
based on this.
so Andy, I wasn't clear, so,
But
so
hundred and
would
sixty-three
you,
thousand dollar increase on the tax bill, you're gonna pay it twice. You're gonna pay the water bill and you're gonna pay the city because they got an unintended $165,000 hit.
I only got
so,
7
so
people
wait,
here,
so
go ahead.
Andy, the question is, well, if there was a motion on the floor to do our maximum rate increase available to us, 15%, on November 20th, would that, you have a yes or no vote
I
on
do
that
not.
motion? You do not.
Absolutely, I can't.
No,
Any kind of practice.
no problem for me, I just, no
I
problem.
think we're just
She's
doing
asking
same
for
old, we're
4.
gonna do it every
No,
3
no,
years.
no.
We're gonna gouge the city 25% on the fire check.
Okay,
It's not gonna
now,
happen.
we're not gonna debate it now, all I wanna say is I recognize what you're saying, if you have more questions that Sid can help you with regarding the city piece of it, I hope you 2 will find a way to talk so that you at least understand where the
I
number
think I
comes.
understand it, but it's gotta be somewhere.
If you don't
around-
like it,
it's gotta
that's a different matter, but if you understand it, that's important. And I certainly hope that one of the others of our trustees will join Casey, Tiz and me, because I believe that it
I
is,
think you will.
I hope so, I don't know.
You could poll
Look
the
at
other
it.
3.
I'll still make
things
a
have been
motion.
voted down before. A number of
I mean, all
states.
with due respect, and I want to say, I don't think I stand very often like this, but I just think that we gotta fix, this is not sustainable or fair.
Sewer people, I make a motion, we adjourn.
We are done with this workshop. Thank you all for coming. See you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. where we're gonna look at the remaining items of the budget.
Yeah, I just wanna get, I just want to understand how that's.